glad to see you. Today we're going to continue learning about how the Nez Perce homeland sustained their culture and their ways of life. You know, when we're talking about homeland, I've been thinking about where I live and how it shapes my way of life. So now I live in a big city and I drive everywhere I need to go, even if it's not particularly far. And I have to walk my dogs on a leash because there are so many dogs in my neighborhood. Oh, plus it's the law. But at a different time, many years ago, I lived way out in the country and houses weren't close to each other. And my daily schedule was completely different. I had to get up super early in the morning to feed big animals like horses and donkeys. And I had to plan ahead if I needed something from town because it was a 3-hour drive. Yep, my dogs ran around outside. I didn't have to walk them because there was so much room for them to play. And I realized that where I lived really shaped what my days were like and what I did. So as we dig into our work today, we're going to think about how the Nez Perce homeland really shaped their ways of life. Let's get started. Today we're going to read a few informational texts about specific aspects of traditional Nez Perce culture. Together we're going to notice and wonder about how Nez Perce children played. Then you'll read to notice and wonder about a very unique type of shelter, the teepee. You can find these texts on handouts 7A and 6C. Pause the video now if you need to retrieve those. Do you have handout 7A? It looks like this. Let's look at the title, Children's Play. I'm already wondering what kind of things Nez Perce children did for fun. As we read, I'm going to annotate about what I notice and what I wonder. And I'll use N for notice and, you guessed it, W for wonder. And I'll also jot down my ideas. I'm going to read aloud Children's Play. Please feel free to read it with me. Children's Play. Nez Perce boys and girls played with toys that helped them learn how to be grown-ups. Their parents and grandparents made small baskets, pots, bows and arrows, horses, and even teepees for the children to play with. The girls often played house while the boys pretended to hunt. Little girls sometimes put real puppies in toy cradle boards and carried them around while the boys pretended to hunt. It's interesting they've said boys pretended to hunt more than one time. Kind of makes me think of when we were reading A Brilliant Plan for Living and about the men and women. I wonder if these children ever change roles when they play. Sometimes they would make a small travois by lashing lightweight poles or branches together and strapping them to a dog. The children piled their toys on the travois and pretended that they were moving camp with their horse. Plains children enjoyed little villages of small teepees made by their parents. The girls worked around the pretend camp while the boys hunted. There it is again. If the boys caught a prairie dog or a squirrel or a rabbit, the girls would roast it over a small fire. A little feast that delighted their parents. Interesting. So I did mention the boys pretended to hunt. That was in there a couple of times. I noticed that. And you know what I wonder? Do boys and girls change roles? I also noticed this. It's a word, travois. I'm not sure what is it or what it is, but I think it's some kind of a sled because it says lashing lightweight poles or branches together and strapping them to a dog. The children piled their toys and pretended they were moving camp. And I do remember that the Nez Perce traveled to follow that buffalo. Now you're going to read another aspect of the Nez Perce culture, the teepee. So I want you to take out handout 6C called Shelter, the Teepee. First, I want you to just read the title and take a moment to write what you notice or wonder about as you prepare to read this article. What did you wonder about as you think about the title? Pause the video and annotate what you wonder on the text from this title. Maybe your question's going to be answered as you read on. For your check for understanding, you will read Shelter the Teepee on handout 6C to notice and wonder. You need to annotate the following items in the margins: 2 to 3 things that you notice and 2 to 3 things that you wonder about. You really don't need to notice and wonder about every single thing. I want you to pay attention to things that you find curious or unfamiliar or interesting. I also want you to pay attention to how the Nez Perce made and used teepees and how that might actually relate to their homeland. That might actually spark some questions for you as well. When you're ready, pause the video to complete this check for understanding. I'll read the text too to notice and wonder. I'll see you soon. Take a few moments to review your annotations. What's something that really amazed you or caught your interest? And here's a question: why do you think it stood out to you? What did you wonder about that seemed really, really important? Noticing and wondering really helps us deepen our understanding of the teepee and how it's connected to that Nez Perce homeland. For the next check for understanding, choose one thing that you noticed and one thing that you wondered and reflect on them more deeply. Why do they seem important? Record your reflections in your journal using these sentence frames. Pause the video now to complete this check for understanding. I'll share something with you that I noticed and wondered in this text. I was fascinated by the way the detailed description was carried out, and the teepee's design in this paragraph was very thoroughly explained at the top of the second page. I had to read it several times. The teepee is described as an envelope house because of the liner on the inside of the teepee. And this strikes me because the liner is a part of the teepee that you may not even see from the outside. I wonder what the liner's made of and how it was tested so it worked so perfectly. This seems really important because the teepee had to be portable too. There was so much information in this text. I'm sure you have some interesting observations and questions too. If you have a learning partner, take a moment now to share your responses. Oh, and by the way, be sure to hold on to handout 6C with your annotations on it. All this thinking that you've done already is going to help you in the next lesson. In this module, our focus is on informative or explanatory writing. In other words, writing to give information or to explain something. And it could be to an audience of people who are familiar with the topic or not familiar with the topic. Generally, this kind of writing answers questions like why or how. For focusing question task 2, you're going to write an explanatory paragraph about one aspect of Nez Perce culture that you've learned about and you will continue to learn about, the teepee. Today we're going to learn more about the parts that make up a paragraph, including the topic statement and the role that each part plays. You'll need handout 6G and 5B, so retrieve those now as we experiment with how does a topic statement in an informative explanatory paragraph work. What do you remember about a topic statement and its job in a paragraph? Pause and think about that for a moment. Thinking about the word topic is really helpful because a topic is essentially what you're writing about. The topic statement is a sentence that states your essential idea or what the paragraph is mostly about. It steers the paragraph just like a steering wheel steers a car. Let's take a look at this model on handout 6G, and it's a model for an informative or explanatory paragraph. Do you remember reading that paragraph about the Nez Perce homeland and color coding it to see clearly how the author had put it together? Well, the author used this model to organize their writing. It shows all the parts of an informative paragraph, that it has 2 points and the job that each part does. It really does help us to see how the parts work together to form a whole. There's even a special trick to help you remember all the parts, and I'll share that with you at the end of this section. The topic statement in an informative paragraph states the essential idea, what the paragraph is mostly about. And in a two-point informative paragraph, the author will include 2 points, and it is going to show up in the topic statement. So I'm going to make a note here, and I want you to do the same. Include 2 points. That's right in the topic statement. Notice right here also next to the topic statement, there is an abbreviation TO for topic and S for statement. That's going to be part of our trick. I'm going to color the topic statement section green as we did on the paragraph the other day. After the topic statement, we actually have to state a point that proves our essential idea. So point number 1 goes here. Actually going to tell what our point is. And once we tell what that point is, we're going to add evidence and elaboration that helps support that point and prove it. I'm going to color these for point number 1 yellow, because point number 1 and the evidence and elaboration that go with it should all stick together. Then, if we're writing a 2-point paragraph, our second point goes here. And then we're going to need to add evidence and elaboration. Notice E and E for each one of those. And I'm going to color this blue. All of these go together, the evidence, the elaboration that helps support that point. Finally, we get to the very end, and look what we have, a concluding statement. What color do you think I should make that? I agree. I think I'm going to make that green, and it's C for concluding. Because remember, the concluding statement reinforces the essential idea that's up here in the topic statement. So this is a 2-point model, and I will tell you that on the back side of your handout, there's an example of a 1-point model. And notice that it has a topic statement, of course, evidence and elaboration, and a concluding statement. What would go in here? That's right, 1 point. We're only adding evidence and elaboration for that 1 point. And so when we look down the side here, to seek, we call this a to-seek model, and we can help remember it by saying, remember, aim to seek, to see clearly. I hope that's helpful. Now, let's take a look at handout 5B. Do you remember this one? It was the exemplar informative paragraph that we worked through the other day. And it's called the Nez Perce Homeland. What was the topic statement in this text? That's right. It was this one in green. Let's read it together. The Nez Perce homeland was rich in resources the people relied on in their daily lives and in the stories that sustained their culture. What do you think? Is this a 2-point or a 1-point model for this paragraph? If you said 2 points, give yourself some snaps, because remember we talked here about the resources in the homeland, and our second point was about stories that sustain the culture. So if I were the author and I decided I wanted to just write a one-point paragraph, what would I need to do? Yep, it's simple. I could actually just not include one of the points. I might only talk about the homeland rich in resources, or I might only talk about stories that sustained their culture. What would a topic statement sound like if it were a one point? Maybe something like this. The Nez Perce homeland was rich in resources the people relied on in their daily lives. One more question for you. If this were a one-point paragraph, what would the author need to do differently other than the topic statement? Yep, that's right. The author just wouldn't include the evidence and the elaboration and the second point, and would only refer to the first point and the evidence and elaboration for that. And of course, a concluding statement. Whew, we have covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? From learning about the Nez Perce culture to learning how we can express our knowledge in informative or explanatory paragraphs. Take a moment to reflect on all of that you've learned and done today. Your final task is going to be to complete a 3-2-1 exit ticket. In your InSync journal, I'd like for you to record 3 interesting facts that you learned about traditional Nez Perce culture or lifestyle. And those might be about how children played or about the teepee. I also would like you to include 2 wonderings or questions that you still have after having done lots of reading. And finally, 1 statement that expresses an idea about how the teepee connects directly to the Nez Perce homeland. Pause the video now and complete your exit ticket. Thank you for learning with me today. You have already got so much knowledge about the Nez Perce culture and how the resources in their homeland made their ways of life possible. We're going to continue exploring this topic together, so stay tuned. I look forward to seeing you next time.